In my soul, in my soul, in my soul, in my soul, I feel so alive. I feel so alive. I feel so alive. In my soul, in my soul, in my soul, in my soul, I feel so alive. I feel so alive. I feel so alive. In my soul, in my soul, in my soul, in my soul, in my soul.
Hello, my lions and ducks. Thank you for all our listeners listening in today. If you're new to the podcast, this is our signature series show where my guests and I will discuss core leadership skills that will help you become great leaders. Each episode builds upon itself, so make sure that you share, comment, subscribe, like, get those notifications, and keep an eye out for new episodes. Thank you for tuning in. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share with you. We have a very special treat here with you today. We have Sara Fracasso, who is a professional career coach specializing in personal brand, building that personal brand, and your resume development, and how to incorporate those values and skills into your resume as well as your social media. So, Sara has helped many people, including myself. I'm forever grateful for the help that she's done for me. She's improved resume messages. She's improved your social media presence, your personal brand. I cannot express enough how important that is. So today we will discuss how leaders identify those core values, align them to a company culture, and represent them on their resume, social media profiles such as LinkedIn. So welcome to the show, Sara.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Sara. How did you get into uh, building personal brands, helping people with resumes? Like what happened in your journey that got you saying, "I want to help others"?
Yeah, so good question. And it was a journey. So I'm actually a certified athletic trainer by training. I have an extensive background in sports medicine, but I've always been a writer and I've always dabbled in helping folks out with their resumes, coaching people through interviews and things like that. It's just something that sort of always came naturally to me. I never asked for payment or anything. It was just sort of helping out friends and family. But then as I went along in my career, I sort of dabbled in a clinical practice. I dabbled in healthcare admin. I even dabbled in, medical device development in the corporate world. And finally, I just got to a place where I was like, stop. I was through COVID, through all that journey as a healthcare admin, I just became extremely burnt out and realized that I kept finding new jobs and succeeding at finding these jobs and getting into them, and I just was not thrilled about it.
Mm.
I had difficulty finding any kind of personal fulfillment in those careers, and I finally got to a point where I was admitting to myself, like, I really would just like to work for myself. So about a year ago, I quit my corporate job and embarked upon this adventure as an entrepreneur. And I started off by taking some time for myself. I became a yoga teacher. I started studying writing and copywriting because those have always been passions of mine. And then as the job market started to sort of twist and turn and become this weird monster that it is today, I started getting more and more friends and family, and then eventually referrals from friends and family going, "Hey, can you please help me with this resume? Can you please help me?"
Ah.
And I was learning branding for myself, for my business. And so honestly, the whole marketing piece really translated quite smoothly. So I went for it. I leaned in a little bit, and it's actually been really a successful part of my journey. And it's honestly been the most fulfilling part. So I'm excited about it.
Wow, that's just a great story, and it there's so many pieces of that that really warm me to hear because um, I think a lot of us the first thing that I want to kind of touch on is the fear. So please make sure you watch episode 1, Fear of Failure. Where we have Susie Earhart on there. Such a great episode talking about how fear can immobilize us And I think everybody that makes that decision to say, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone, I'm going to quit that 9 to 5, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And it's not just a hashtag. Like it's serious, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that decision, and there's a lot of fear that boils. And for you to be able to do it so successfully, navigate those waters, and I'm telling our listeners from personal experience, Sarah saved me. She pulled me out of dark times. She kept me focused on who I am, where I was going. And this podcast, including everything else that is going on in my life, I owe greatly to everybody that has contributed and supported me. But the spark, as they say, that the fire that lit it all was the conversation I had with Sarah. And so, super grateful, and thank you for being on this show with us today. I know our listeners are going to have some really good things to walk away from. So let's dive right into it. Let's hit the first topic. How do you identify your core values as a leader? And I think that's the most important. When I had this conversation offline with a friend, telling them about this podcast, they said, well, how do you do something like that? How do you identify core values? And I think identifying core values really requires self awareness and reflection. You need to really examine your personality, your values, your skills, your experience, who you are, how you're going to bring that all together. And for me, it was the conversation I had with you, Sarah, about personal brand. You met me and you instantly said, you you have this persona, this big persona, this brand that needs to come out. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that? I want to dive into my personal journey, but I want to hear from you. um, what what was it that triggered that? What was it that got you thinking, I need to get this guy along the lines of building his brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for a lot of us, first of all, you talked about self-awareness, and that's so important. But for many of us, we get so caught up in people pleasing and trying to be like a really good employee and trying to give interviewers what we think they want to hear. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But when you're trying to conduct a job search that is based upon your own values and figuring that out, it's not about them anymore. It's about you. And that's very difficult for most of us. So a lot of times it's reverse engineering those answers, right? Like, let me look back at some of the jobs I've had that I've really hated. And let me look back at what I hated about them, or what, didn't strike true with me, things like that. When did I feel like I was forced to compromise in some way that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with? And you get a lot of answers out of those sorts of reflections. For you specifically, Armando, I think you were referred to me from a friend of mine from a previous role that I had, and she was a superstar. So shout out to Taylor. If you want to edit that out or not, but she's
Yep,
amazing.
absolutely.
Um,
Yep.
and as she was recommending you so highly to me, I knew right away, like, well, this guy is going to be a rock star. And then when I met you, you were just so enthusiastic about your work. And you had mentioned to me right off the bat that you were in the process of, or you had developed this sort of side gig, this consulting company, this user experience thing, and that's really where your heart was. But at the end of the day, just like all of us, we have to support our family, we have to earn a living, and we're not quite there yet. So for
Yeah.
me, it was teasing that out of you and going, okay, okay, okay. So I see the spark, I see the passion, and how do we translate that into creating this brand so that everybody who Googles Armando can see what I see? Because you're not going to get everyone on a Zoom call, right? So that's sort of how it worked for
I'll
me,
try.
for
I'll
you.
try.
It just oozes out of you, and I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, uh, to help our listeners kind of dive deeper into my personal journey, um, I've done just about everything you can imagine within a call center. And I started my career back in 2004-ish, and worked my way up. I started in collections. The very first job I had, the very first phone call, the guy just cursed me out, and so what I'm trying to say is that I've been there through the grind of every single role that you can imagine in sales, customer service, retention, workforce management. I've done, leadership, supervisors, operation management, all these other roles. So one thing you did, and you kind of touched on right now, was you forced me to really look at it and say, what do I enjoy doing with my life? And what do I absolutely not want to do ever again, right? And that was I think really really important, because what happened is I said I don't want to do call center work anymore. Not because I don't love call centers, not because I don't love that work. It will always have a special place in my heart for me, and I may end my career there at some point. It's what it did is it forced me to say why, and it created this like empathy, this compassion, that it's like it's not because that's not who I am or that I don't want that. It's because um I don't want to be looked at as the call center guy. And I started to have some compassion for all these great professionals, and thought to myself, how many of these people feel the same way? Like, man, I'm so talented, but people just keep on putting me in the box of like, oh, you do call centers. And and over the last 10 years, I've been doing project management. Yeah, it's been in some way call center related, call center solutions. But I'm not just a call center guy. I come with such a diverse background and experience. And so that was helping me identify those core values of mine. Like, okay, I'm compassionate because I empathize with people's situation. I can realize their perspectives. I appreciate that. I'm open minded. I think compassion is something that really stands out to me. And then the other piece came together that said, well, what else am I? Well, I feel like I'm very innovative, courageous and brave, and I'll stand up and I'll be the voice for those that can't, even when it gets me in trouble, even when somebody says, "Ooh, you probably shouldn't have said that." That kind of tells me I probably should have then, because it probably needed to
Mhm.
be said and somebody needed to hear it. And so that's where my second value came up, was bold, being bold. It doesn't necessarily mean brazen. It doesn't mean disrespectful. I'm bold enough to take chances. I'm bold enough to speak my mind in a respectful way. And I'm bold enough to say, instead of looking at something, a solution, and saying that can't be done, I recognize and I ask why? Why can't it? And and that's kind of where my innovative thought leadership comes in. But then I thought, okay, that's it. That's my values. I'm bold. I'm compassionate. And then I as I'm thinking that, one more thing popped in my head, and I said, well, everybody keeps on saying I'm genuine. I don't really try to be. I just That's how I come across. And so then I said,
Well,
everything I do is going to be with an authentic touch. I'm intentionally going to be as authentic as I possibly can be. Why we're having this show, why I do other podcasts, why I have the consulting website that I have, because I want to be authentic in who I am, what I like to do. I thought about this is a very simple way to explain it. I thought about this podcast and what it meant to me, and I thought about what I was going to wear today. And I decided that I was going to wear a hat, and that I was going to have a short sleeve shirt on, and I was going to expose my tattoos to the world, because that's who I am, because I wasn't worried about some executive seeing this and thinking, "Oh, this guy's not professional." Um and so those values is what really kept me together, rooted me, right? And I think it all started with the conversation you and I had, and then this personal brand just kind of took its own. And I don't want to go into it with my personal brand, the lion and the duck, today, but I do want to say that it's important that you identify yourself with something and you build that brand, and that can do so much for you. Um, so, uh, Sarah, did you want to add anything else? Because I took a lot of talk time there away from you.
Yeah, no, I think you sharing your journey is great because you've been honestly one of my most fulfilling success stories, because I saw that in you right away when I met you, and to see that you're getting the success that you deserve and that you wanted all along is a treat for me. So I think you should share that. But I would
That's
just
awesome.
circle back to say that you made a really good point, but you kind of like glossed right over it, is that in creating this personal brand and identifying your values, um, it does a few things for you, right? It creates kind of a lighthouse, right? Or a post for you to come back to when we get into that career journey, looking job seeking journey, depending on how you got there, right? And we've talked about this before. Occasionally you can get a little desperate. You start getting into that people pleasing mindset once again, like, I just need a job, man. Like, I just need a job.
That's
And
right.
that's great. And we can all appreciate that, right? Especially in this day and age. However, what we don't want to do, because the job market is a nightmare right now, is to end up back in it 6 months later. So it creates sustainability for
Yeah,
you if you can have that light post to look at and be that beacon for yourself of, this is what I need to be successful and happy and fulfilled in my work, and keep coming back to that. And because it's the I always say it's the power of attraction, or the law of attraction, right? You want to put out there what you want out of your career and out of your next position, so that you can be fulfilled and you can be happy, and you're not job searching in a year or 6 months or 2 years again. And of course, things happen in jobs, roles change, bosses change, and there's only so much you can do about that. But I think it's really important that we align ourselves first, and you keep your eye on that prize to
that's
get you
right.
what you really want.
That's right. That's your
Yeah,
North
I think
Star.
that's
That's how I always looked at it, is
yes.
like, I need to come back. It was my boomerang. Like, okay, wait a minute. What am I doing here? I'm applying for a job that I have no business applying for. And I'm going to invite you back for another quick episode to talk about the journey of the candidates in a candidate journey. And I'd like to have more than just one guest on that, because that candidate journey absolutely sucks. It is the worst. And to your point, you get
Yep.
so desperate that you're willing to do anything and everything, and you lose sight of that North Star. And so yeah, that's going to be a great one. I can't wait to do that with you. Coming back to those core values, um, how do you represent those core values into a resume? So now you've worked with me, or you're working with someone and they've identified their persona, their core values, who they are. How do you help them to incorporate that into a resume?
Yeah. So it's a plethora of things, right? I think the very first thing that you need to look at is creating a summary statement. And a lot of people put those on their resumes. This would be something that you want to put on your LinkedIn, or it can just simply be something for you that you don't have any intention of sharing with anyone. It's just sort of talking to yourself and talking yourself up and
Mhm.
saying, a short, concise, but powerful statement that says who you are, what you stand for, um, and how is that relevant to whatever industry or profession that you're in or trying to get into, right? Because some people are just simply transitioning into something new, and they need to show that, look, I have all these skills over here, that I've cultivated over the course of my career. I figured out that this isn't the industry for me, and I don't want to start in an entry level position. And here is why this translates, right? So just
Yes,
creating that
yes.
really powerful statement, for yourself, I think, is step one. And then step 2 is start reviewing the resume that you have. A lot of people's resumes are better than they think they are. It's just a little bit of wordsmithing. And so it's incorporating those skills and those accomplishments from your previous jobs and from your previous experience, and even life experience. Some people overlook the fact that they have, families. Some people are stay-at-home parents. Some people are, caretakers for their loved ones. And there's so many skills and just values that you attain from doing those sorts of things that don't always translate to work experience. And it's important to tap into those and say, okay, so I am good at X. It's something that I like to do. And here is how it represents who I am as a person, a leader, an employee. And it's just a
Mhm.
lot of integrating and looking back at what you already have and going, oh yeah, because again, it's about whether authenticity or not is one of your core values. It is such an important part of what you're doing here, because if you're not authentic with yourself and authentic with your resume, authentic with who you stand to be on your social media, you're gonna get opportunities that are inherently not in alignment with who you really are, right? So looking
That's
back
it.
at
Yep.
what you put on your resume in the first place, um, and then just taking the time. Once again, it's a lot of self-reflection. Sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's meditating, sometimes it's just having a really deep conversation with a friend or a coach or a therapist, whoever, that you need to have that conversation with. And you start to have this realization, like, these are the things that I want to put on my resume that I enjoy doing. And here is the why. It's the why behind the what, if you
Hmm.
will.
Hmm.
So those are the two big ones. And then the third one is really just curating content. And it's not necessarily that you have to become an influencer online and you have to post every day and all of that. That's a ton of work, and sometimes we're just not cut out for that. And some people just really hate social media, and don't want to do all that, but you do need to have a presence. So it's creating that profile, creating that resume that really speaks to who you are and reflects your values. And I just say, use your intuition. Be be an observer first. Look at what you're writing, look at what you're
Yes.
liking or reposting or whatever. Again, a lot of times it's just that, right? Sometimes people will say it better than we ever could, and it's just going, yeah, that I really
Hmm.
that
That's
resounds
right.
with me. And looking at it, and how does that resound with me? If I were posting something or liking something, how does that reflect? If Armando's posting something and I'm observing it, am I attracted to that? Does that resound with me? Does that excite me? Does that make me want to hire you? Or does that make me kind of standoffish? Does that make me go, "Hmm,
Yeah.
maybe I
Yeah.
don't want to work with him?" And it's a little, again, self-reflection and listening to
Yeah.
that voice in your head that says no, or yes, yes, yes. Just, you really have to tap into that.
Oh man, there's two things that I want to touch on that I think are really important. So one, with the resume, when you're doing that and incorporating that, the biggest challenge I had, and I want to speak to all of those professionals out there that are saying, I can do this myself. I can write, I can do all of this. This is easy for me to do. Why do I need to hire somebody like Sarah? Well, I'll tell you why. Because great minds get into your own mind. And yeah, this is what I found myself doing. I wanted to tell everybody about everything. I mean, absolutely every inch of my life I wanted to put on that paper. And I felt pressured that I had two sheets of paper, two pages on my resume, and that's it. And my life is way more than 2 pages. I'm somebody that brings way more than that. And where I struggled was what do I cut? Like, I don't want to cut. That got really personal. I don't want to cut that. That's who I am. And you did a really good job of meeting with me and helping me understand that and really knowing, okay, I'm not trying to cut this piece of you out of this paper. I'm trying to incorporate it in its in put 3, 4, 5 things into one statement, and you did a really good job of being able to do that, um, which I think is super important, because when you're writing a resume, you have to take the personal piece away from it. And sometimes, if you're somebody like me, it's just too hard to do. It was too hard for me to. I take things so personal that I didn't want to cut any of it out, and you helped me to do that. So I think that was really important and key when you're incorporating those values, when you're trying to articulate your skills and experience. And as you mentioned, there's more beyond just what you've done at jobs. There's also what you do at home. I'm a coach for my son's sports teams, and a lot of that really needs to show through in how I'm a leader, on not just with kids but with adults as well, right? And there's a lot of things that translate over. So you really help do that in a very concise way, and I think that's important. The second thing is social media. Oh my gosh, I hate social media. Now I'm turning to love it. I used to think social media was uh, vain and like all about like self-centered, and like now I'm starting to realize that if you create a good strategy and you manage your social media presence just a little bit differently than you would have willy-nilly, if you're more strategic about what you're putting, like you mentioned, sometimes it's not even about what you're saying, it's about just reposting somebody saying something that really matters. um, and what platform you decide to do that, how, when, timing, all of that is important. It starts to build your brand. It starts to build credibility in your brand. And I don't think, in today's society, I don't think you can do one without the other. You have to, if you're going to build your brand, you have to make your brand recognizable out there in the world. And that the easiest, best way to do that is through social media. And so I think about my brand. What I want to do is turn it into the McDonald's Golden Arches. Nothing has to be said. Somebody sees those golden arches and they know exactly what that stands for. And everything I do with my brand, I want that same. They see that lion and duck brand. I want them to know exactly. There's no, I'm going to go get a hamburger and I know which hamburger I want. I know all the combo numbers from 1 to 8. And then they don't say supersize me anymore, but I always supersize everything. So shame on me. But yeah, the point is that like you said, the resume and the social media really come together. What else? What else would you like to share with our listeners about incorporating those values into either resumes or social media?
I think one thing that we overlook is that we all already, this is already who we are. This personal brand of ours is already who we are innately as human beings. And even though it's a lot of work to sort of tease that out and figure it out in our own mind, the folks that we have worked with, the folks that we have lived with and taken care of and loved and who love us, they already know who you are. So again, it is a journey of figuring that out and again, making it a little bit more concise and succinct and getting it out there in a way that's digestible. But two things I guess I would remind everybody of is, one, don't be afraid to use your network and grow your network. Your network is huge already, right? If you're not 5 years old, probably your network is more robust than you would ever give yourself credit for. Get on to LinkedIn and start adding every boss, every coworker, every kid's parent who you've coached, as long as they don't hate you because you didn't play their kid. And even some that do will still recognize the good in you,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And every janitor that you've walked by and said hello to for 10 years at your last job, really grow that network, because your resume, your social media presence, it's not everything you are. Like you talked about, Armando, wanting to put every single piece of your existence onto 2 sheets of paper. And that's, one, not advisable. But it's not, no one's going to read that, right? The resume, the social media, this is an invitation to a conversation, is what I always say. So you're really
That's right.
just giving somebody a hint, giving somebody a glimpse. I see those Golden Arches and I go, ooh, fries. But I'm probably also going to get a Coke, and I'm probably also
Yep.
going to get a cheeseburger if I'm really honest, right? So but I don't necessarily know that till I get there. I just want, ooh, fries, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
putting out there just these little bits and pieces of who you are. And so again, it's growing that network and not being afraid. It's not creepy on LinkedIn to add and connect with people that you barely know, people that you've met once at a meeting, person that you sat next to on a bus and had a really good conversation with. It's not creepy. It's not Facebook. It's not, you're not adding them, their personal like LinkedIn account and asking to see pictures of their children. It's your like professional persona
That's
is
right.
what LinkedIn is for. And so don't feel weird about it. And if they don't connect with you, then they don't connect with you. And it's not the end of the world.
That's right.
But the
That's
more
right.
people you can get on board, the more visibility you're gaining, and the more opportunities you become aware of, and the more recruiters are going to see you, and on and on and on and so forth. So don't be shy.
Spreads like wildfire. Like I'm one to really say when I started this journey, I had like maybe 5 people in my LinkedIn network. And again, going back to, I wasn't a social media kind of guy. That wasn't who, I just didn't believe in that kind of stuff. And then very quickly, I started to see how the support system works and how the networking with people really works. And now I'm like at 150 or more in a matter of a few months, and I could be even more if I was just really focused on that. But the point is that you got to start somewhere. And I love how you say, like, there's people in your network right now that you can start with and just say, hey, I want to be in your network. Send me a request. I'm happy to accept that, and I want you to be a part of my network. Any of our listeners listening in, I'm sure that Sarah as well, send her a request,
Definitely.
and we'll help get that network started and growing for you. So, um, so now taking it and really aligning those core values with the company culture, I think is really important. And there's something that I want to touch on. You said that, and I loved how you said this. In fact, I'm going to write it down, the fries of McDonald's. Um, so that's exactly it. And that's what you helped me understand in my resume. We put my website, my portfolio link, we put my, LinkedIn profile on that resume. And at the end of my job search, I found a company that actually acknowledged that. They actually said during the interview process, I had a chance to take a look at your website, quite impressive. I had a chance to see some of the work that you've done. Very impressed. So it was exactly what you said, is that resume was the fries, and they're like, "Oh, fries, great." And then as they started to dig through, and it really didn't happen the first 2 interviews. It was really that third and fourth final interview that really started to peel the layers back of that onion to really understand who is Armando and what does he really care about? What's the purpose? And they went to those things that I put so much energy and effort into that no other organization took the time to do. And so aligning those core values with the company really, really starts with, uh, you know, doing some research and evaluation. You really need to understand the company's mission, their vision, their goals, their practices, their culture, what it looks like. So, Sarah, can you share some tips on how our listeners can better align their core values to a company's culture?
Yes. And I think maybe it's not aligning your values with the company's culture, it's finding a company that aligns with your values. Um,
Oh,
so
powerful.
a few different ways, again, because we don't want to compromise who we really are for the sake of the almighty dollar, for
Yeah.
the sake of, just getting a job. That's and I want to acknowledge that I'm saying that from a place of privilege, right? It's not everybody who has the time or, the savings account or the freedom to say, okay, I'm going to sit on this job search for 6 months until I get what I really want. I want to acknowledge that that comes from a place of privilege, and we're really lucky to have had those experiences, and that some people just need a job. And this is sort of an aside, but I just wanted to put it out there that there is absolutely nothing wrong with a bridge job. There is absolutely nothing wrong with taking a job because you need an income.
That's right.
Where I come in, or where this values alignment job search comes in, is to find that dream job, to find that job where you feel like you can grow and expand and really sink your teeth in and thrive. And if you have to go work someplace that you don't love first because they hired you and they're paying you and you've got rent due, don't ever be ashamed of that. The trick is finding a job that's not going to consume your entire life, so that you also have the time to take to sit with yourself and do this additional work to get to that, to the end goal, right? So I just wanted to put that out there, because I know I'm coming here from like a place of privilege. I'm single, I don't have any children, I had a savings account, I was working a corporate job, and like it was like me and my plants. Like I had the time and I had the money saved up to really put into that work, and not everyone does, and that's okay. Take the job you need to take to pay the bills, and then do the work on the side. And maybe if you hate that job enough, it will motivate you to really put the time in and do this for yourself. But you owe it to yourself. And you deserve a job that you really want. So I apologize
And
for
I
that
want to add,
tangent. Mhm.
no, that was great. But what I want to do is add to that and say, from my personal journey, the universe will force you into having patience. Um, I, I like you had some flexibility and freedom financially, but there wasn't much margin, and and so I was, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to take the first job that offers me. Like, that's the one I'm going to take, right?
Mm.
And ultimately, I wasn't getting offers. And again, I want to talk about that candidate experience at a later time. But um, it the way I see it today is that the universe was really trying to speak to me and say, that's not the right one for you. That's not the right one for you. So even though I was eager to just jump on board with the first one that came to me, it never came to me. And then when the offer did come to me that was aligned, that the company did share the same values that I had, and cared about who I am as a person, all of a sudden I had all these other offers coming through, and I took the one that gave me purpose. I took the one that had lower salary. I took the one that I believed more deeply in the team, in the people. Um, and it was an amazing thing. Like, it was very interesting, because when the universe put it out there and the time was right, and it was all stars aligned, as they say, I think I was granted with clarity. It became very clear which one shared my values, which one actually cared about me. And I can tell you, I'm still going through that onboarding process. And it has been a very pleasant onboarding process. Nothing different than any other organization. It just the feeling of, just an email that says, hey, we're excited to have you, right? Multiple people in LinkedIn reaching out to me from that organization saying, hey, we're excited to have you to be a part of the team. Those little details, they matter. And so
Yeah.
what are some questions uh, that you would recommend that somebody can ask during an interview process that might help shed
Mm.
some light on that, right? Like sometimes, because the fact
Yeah.
is that a lot of these organizations, they have this values, these missions, these visions, they put them on the website, but let's be honest, a lot of the time, I mean,
It's
that's
marketing. Yeah.
manufactured. It's manufactured, right?
Mhm.
Like, come on, let's be honest.
Mhm.
What I loved about the organization I joined is their vision was very simplistic. Get to zero. That was very clear. There was no mush. There was no marshmallow in there. There was no nothing. It was just get to zero. And
Mhm.
for those that aren't familiar, I'm working with an organization that delivers quality or prides themselves in quality CPR training. And so the whole get to zero is trying to make sure that we don't lose anybody because we did not administer CPR quick enough or effectively enough. So save as many lives as possible, which is powerful, right? And so you don't have to add all that fluff in there. And so getting back to the question, what questions can we ask as candidates to help discover whether this organization truly does value what I value?
Yeah, good question. So if you don't mind, I'm going to walk it back just one step and answer
Yeah,
your original question, which
yeah,
was how do we know that the company, before we get to the interview part, like how do we know we're applying to a company whose values probably line up with our values? And so to your point, number one is just thoroughly research the company. Look at the website, look at Google them. Honestly, it's as simple as
yeah,
that. And to your point, read everything with a critical mind because it is marketing, right? When we put our company together, no one goes, I'm starting my company because I want to become the richest and I want to rule the world. Well, maybe some people do, and
yeah,
some people are succeeding, but that's not necessarily what they're going to put out there in an attempt to attract good employees, right? So research that. You probably will get some clues out of those things that they make public. But if it's a publicly traded company, you can read about past decisions and actions and behaviors that their administration has taken, and whether or not that's in alignment with how you would have done it, maybe, or how you would have liked to have
yeah,
seen it done. And then also, don't be afraid to look at Glassdoor and LinkedIn and seek out employee perspectives. As you've probably figured out, a lot of job seeking and networking is who you know. So if you know somebody in the company, or you just barely know somebody in the company, or you know somebody who knows somebody whose cousin works in that company, don't be afraid to reach out, send a LinkedIn request, send a DM, and just say, do you like your job?
yeah,
I see
yeah,
my hiring manager is going to be Jim Smith, and I see you're on Jim Smith's team. What do you think of Jim? How do you like, how is Jim as a boss? And some people will be really candid with you, and some people will be really standoffish about their answer, and that's also a clue. Because they're
yeah,
trying to keep it professional and not get in trouble too. So what are they really thinking? And just a lot of critical thinking and looking for those sorts of red flags. Um, in terms of what questions to ask, again, it's once you know what your values are and what the company publicizes, it's just combining the two. And one, it shows that you're well researched. So it's not off putting to say, so, Mr. Coronado, I see that the company mission statement is really geared toward saving lives. How, and say, for example, one of my core values is mm, ethics. I want to do things in an ethical way, right? So, how, for example, how does your company go about making sure that its products are saving lives in a way that are ethical, in a way that is not putting providers or putting, um, you know, caretakers or other people at risk, things like that. And that's probably a poor example. I was sort of going with it, but again, it's more of melding. I see this, it looks promising to me. How do you specifically go about making sure X aligns with Y? X being your
mm-hmm,
value, Y being my value. And there's, so many different ways and so many different questions you can craft from that. It really is personal and
yeah,
what matters to you. Um, but also, don't be afraid to ask those questions and pay careful attention to the answers, because sometimes, again, you get a little bit desperate. You start to see a company that looks good on paper, and you hear what you want to hear, you see what you want to see. Ask for specific examples, ask for recent examples, and don't be afraid to
Yeah.
ask more than one person the same question. Because you
Yeah.
might get a different answer from the CEO that you might get from one of your teammates or from the guy that delivers coffee. Um, and
That's
don't
right.
and really pay attention to their reaction to the question. If they feel put off by the question, those are all signs, and sometimes they're green flags and sometimes they're red flags, right?
That's right. That's right. I think more importantly, yes, asking good questions to uncover, try to help you uncover uh, the authentic part of that journey or that discovery is important. But for me, what I was able to do was really hone in on my listening skills. And so I was able to really hear red flags. I had one early on. I had one uh, um, company. I had 6 interviews with 6 different people. The person that I interviewed last with, um, every person that I interviewed with gave me a heads up on that last interview person, and they did not do it in a PC way. Like they were just very blunt, like, oh, this person's pretty rude, this person's pretty straightforward. And I had to really think about, well, if they're going to be rude and straightforward with somebody that they're just meeting for the first time, how are they going to be when they get comfortable with me and they're leading me? What are they going to say to me? And so that was a really big red flag for me. Um, and and so there's other experiences that I could share, but really it's about just staying honed in on what they are saying and how they're saying it. And to your point, asking the same question over and over because they're doing the same thing to you, by the way. And
Right.
when you have multiple interviews, some of them are asking you the same questions to see if you change your answer, or how you change
Mm-hmm.
your answer, or if you feel obligated to give a different answer. And sometimes just that
Mm-hmm.
North Star, keeping that in mind and staying to that North Star is what will lead to your offer. So awesome. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Sarah, for spending time with us today. I just want to bring this all together, and I'd like to say that uh, core values are the foundation of your leadership and personal brand. Representing them on your resume, on your social media profiles, super important. And then, aligning, or as you said, ensuring that the company is aligned instead of you aligning with the company, right? Having those values aligned, identifying those values, picking the right place, listening, actively being engaged, asking questions. All of these things will help you, not just in an interview process, not just in building your brand or being a leader. I think in life general, when you really know that North Star, you just feel so much more confident in the decisions you make and who you are and what you represent. So um, you know, you can stand out as a leader, and you can stand up for what you believe in, and that's the most powerful thing that I want our listeners to take away from. So again, thank you, Sarah, for joining us today. I know that our listeners have gained some very, very valuable knowledge. Any final thoughts?
Yes, I would just leave you with this. I agree with everything you just said. Your personal values and being in alignment with yourself is going to get you so much further in your life, not just in your career, than trying to please others ever will. That's how we end up burnt out and frustrated and stressed and looking for new jobs. So don't mm, don't ever discredit any of the jobs or any of the experiences that you've had, even if you know that they were not in alignment with yourself, or even if it was something that you hated, because there is a lesson in there somewhere. There's a reason you hated that job. And if you
Yeah,
can take the time to suss that out, why did I hate that so much? Why did that boss trigger me so much? Why did working in a call center and constantly getting cussed out, why why, what about that? Like, no one likes getting yelled at, but what specifically about that made me hate waking up and coming to work every day? And reverse engineering that into, oh, one of my core values is I need to be treated with respect, for example,
Right.
every single day at work. And I think that taking the time and taking the effort to really walk down that path and discover those things about yourself will lead you to where you're really meant to be, and finding an employer, because they're out there. Good employers are out there. Good bosses are out there. Good companies are out there that care about their employees, that will take the time to look at all of their social media and all of the work that they've done to represent themselves online, and appreciate the things about you that you appreciate about yourself and want to be appreciated for. And therein lies, in my opinion,
Yeah.
success. But you owe it to yourself. So don't, take the job that you need to take in order to get the money, but don't stop the process if you can.
Yes. Yes. Beautifully said. So, where can our listeners follow you on social media, maybe find you through LinkedIn? How can they hire you to take this conversation further?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Strolling Sage, STROLLINGSAGE, all one word. LinkedIn, I am at Sara J. Fracasso. I'm not going to spell that. You'll have it in the show notes, I'm sure. Or my business page is Strolling Sage, or simply go to my website, strollingsage.com, and you can just put yourself on my calendar and we can get this conversation started. I'd be happy to help any way that I can.
Awesome. That is so great. For all you listening in today, please do yourself a favor. Even if you don't move forward with getting something going with Sarah, please make sure that you start thinking internally about your personal brand and what that means to the rest of the world, and how you're going to show up. It will do so much for you, as Sarah mentioned, not just for your career, but in your life. So thank you again, Sarah, for the time that you took with us today. Thank you, listeners, for listening in, hanging in there all the way to the end. You're a trooper. Thank you. I hope that you enjoyed the content. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, and go onto my website, thelionandtheduck.com. Become a member. Membership is free. You get access to the blogs. You get access to today's podcast and many more. You also get access to some online training courses. We'll be putting up some more training courses here shortly for you. Some of these courses do require membership, payment membership. So take a look. Contact me directly if you have any questions. Contact Sarah directly if you have any questions. Don't forget to send us that invite to connect on LinkedIn. We're happy to connect with you, and I certainly hope that you've taken something from here today to make you that much better, move the needle that much further. Remember, be bold, be compassionate, be authentic. Till next time, lions keep on roaring, ducks keep on paddling. Have a great day.
I never switch sides, like even when I die, I'ma ride for the squad, let our ties in the hearse. I've been on the vibe, kinda hard to describe.